And welcome back. This is our second week of Cover 1. I'm your host, James Bouligny, and my co-host, Ryan Chadwick.
How's it going?
And Paul Harris.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, we have some incredible games this week. Last week, some of the games got rained out. But hey, this week, it's looking like it's going to be a good Friday. Before we really get into it, though, we do have our title sponsor, Whataburger. Cover 1 is brought to you by Whataburger. I just had one of their new Dr. Pepper milkshakes, and it's the best thing I've tasted this week. Go try a Dr. Pepper milkshake now at any Whataburger near you, with 4 convenient locations in San Angelo, including their newest location at 5855 Sherwood Way. I'm not trying to oversell it or anything, but it changes you forever. All right, Chadwick, we're going to be talking about the Central Bobcats. They got a loss last week, kind of a bad loss against Abilene High. Now they have Amarillo. Go ahead and talk about them.
All right, but before we get into that, can we address the fact that you're kind of Game 6 Michael Jordan, feeling a little bit under the weather today, but you're still just getting after it?
I mean, we don't have to address it, but we can just keep talking about it.
All right, man. Well, since the Central Bobcats traveled to Amarillo for the first time in 13 years, Paul? It's been a long time. But they're going to hit that long road trip after that loss to Abilene High. It ended up getting pretty ugly at the end, but there were some really good positives to come out of that game. Christian English once again looked crisp and clean. We had Jimmy Edwards and Colton Hill kind of emerge as his top 2 favorite targets, and the Bobcats combined for 146 rush yards on the ground from their running back tandem there. Paul, help me out here, man. What else did you see last Friday?
You know, if you'd have talked to me at the end of the third quarter, it would have looked a lot better. They were down by 7 points. They had the ball. I mean, I was thinking, hey, man, Central's really putting on a great performance here against Abilene High. And then everything fell apart in the fourth, and it gets lopsided at the end. But to me, there was still some encouraging signs of progress. The final score looks bad. The defense did struggle. Abilene High had athletes all over the field. So the final score looked bad. I don't think it was as bad as the score indicated, though.
And I hear you. Now, looking ahead at the Amarillo High game, I was lucky enough to watch Amarillo High scrimmage Friendship before the season started. And, man, Amarillo High is very capable of running the rock. Friendship had a lot of trouble just stopping the run against them. But with that being said, that defense is a little bit lackluster against the passing game. So Christian English will be able to get some deep balls in there if he just wants to send Colton Hill down the sidelines. I think this one's going to be a good matchup, and this is going to be the matchup that I'm at this week. So you'll look forward to hearing me give my analysis and getting highlights from that game. But I do think if Central's defense can stop that run, I do know that their offense will be able to score. I think that's their path to victory.
All right. What else do we think about Central? I mean, what do we know about Amarillo High? Anything?
Dude, they're the Sandies, man. They can run the ball. Their defense, they're going to try to load up the box, and that's why I think that Central does have an advantage there. I think that they can take advantage of Amarillo High's secondary, and this game will be high scoring. It's really going to come down to how many mistakes the Bobcats can limit themselves to.
All right. Before we move on, we got to hear from our Central sponsors, Angelo Bolt. Since 1994, Angelo Bolt and Industrial Supply has served the Concho Valley for 30 years and counting. Angelo Bolt is the go-to place for fasteners, power tools, air compressors, safety equipment, and everything in between. Chances are Angelo Bolt will always have what you need when you need it, and that odd chance they don't have exactly what you're looking for, they'll find it fast. No request is too big or too small for Angelo Bolt. Located at 808 Warehouse Road, where customer service is their top priority. Thank you, Angelo Bolt, for being a sponsor of Cover 1 and the Central Bobcats football team. All right, let's move on and talk about Snyder at Lakeview. Paul.
I guess Lakeview's game is kind of the opposite of Central's. If Lakeview started out pretty bad, they're down 30-7, and then they finished it really strong. They scored the game's last 20 points and ended up losing 30-27, but a lot of momentum heading into this week. I think a big question is who's going to be at quarterback for Lakeview. Austin Perez got banged up a little bit last week. Sophomore Chris Alviso comes in, and he has a great game. He has nearly 200 yards passing, maybe a little over 50 yards rushing, leads the big comeback. So if Perez is healthy, maybe he starts. Maybe there's a quarterback controversy either way. I don't know. Alviso sure looked good last week. And then, of course, Braylon White and Francisco Ramirez each had about 150 yards receiving and a touchdown. So Lakeview lost, but a ton of momentum coming into this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, coming back from 14 points down like they did, that just helps build confidence. And Snyder's they have a good chance to get a win here. What do you think, Chadwick?
I mean, Snyder lost last week too. This is two teams still looking for their first win of the season, and I definitely think this is a game that Lakeview can win. They looked very promising on offense in that second half, and I'm not gonna lie to you, like nothing against anyone, but if your sophomore quarterback's hot, maybe roll with him.
All right, speaking of sophomore quarterbacks, we're going to talk about Miles and Sterling City. This is a rivalry game. Miles won last week against Sonora. I talked to Coach Wilhelm on Saturday for probably about 10 minutes. We just talked about how Liam Yancey settled into the game. Said first couple, plays he looked like a sophomore playing, varsity football. But he really settled in. He had over 100 yards, and he looked pretty good. He had Cooper Ellison to throw to. That defense really stepped up and played well. They kind of, bullied them in the trenches. Sterling City, they got a new head coach, DJ Howell. They won. They beat Odessa Compass, who is, very much improved. In this game, there's a whole. We know the history here, folks. We've been covering this, on COVER1 for the past couple years. Sterling City, Miles got the better Sterling City. Sterling City got the better Miles, and then last year, I think Sterling City won in the regular season, then Miles won in the playoffs and went on to that second round. This should be just a really, really good football game. This is, there's a lot of. It's good to have a rivalry game, early, but this should be a good one. What do you think, Chadwick?
I mean, this is a game that I always look forward to because it really does seem like they not really rivals in previous years, but because of recent history that these two teams don't like each other.
It's matching up early in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think it's because those two districts always play each other, and they've played each other.
And that sucks for the Concho Valley.
3 years in a row now.
That sucks for the Concho Valley, but
yes, but it makes for great West Texas high school football.
Absolutely.
Especially since it's been so back and forth. I think this series is pretty much 500 over the last 5 years or so. So. I think it's going to be another exciting matchup, although I do think Miles does have the advantage in this one.
Paul, what do you think?
I would agree that Miles has the advantage. They just got so much firepower. It's pretty crazy that that'll be the fifth meeting between them in the last 2 years. Their districts are not aligned anymore for the playoffs, so if they were to meet in the playoffs this year, it would be like in the state semifinals, I believe.
So, well, let's hope for that.
Yeah, we can only hope for that.
We can hope for
Keep that rivalry going.
All right, but moving on, we're going to be talking about Brownwood and Wall, Chadwick.
So again, we just like a couple weeks ago, last week, we are actually going to bring in Houston Guy, former head coach of the Wall Hawks, to discuss this matchup on this week's Coach's Corner. Wall opens up at home to a very, very talented Brownwood Lions team. Brownwood actually got rained out last week. They're still 0-0. They were supposed to play Abilene Wiley, but with all that weather, it just did not happen. So this will be the Brownwood Lions season opener and Wall's home opener. Should be a good one. But yeah, James, let's go ahead and just go straight to Houston Guy.
And welcome to our Coach's Corner. We are here with our special guest, former Hawks head coach, Houston Guy. Coach Guy, how are we doing today?
Well, I'm doing really good. We've had a lot of rain out here. We haven't washed away yet. Maybe some people have, but we're enjoying the cool temperatures today and having a great day.
All right, let's talk about Wall and Brownwood, man. Let's talk about Wall and Mason first. How do you feel Mason or Wall looked against Mason?
I thought Wall looked really good. I thought at times that offensively they were really explosive. Those kids on the perimeter, man, once they get the ball in space, they're hard to deal with. And again, they played great defense. Coach Slaughter had them ready. They were dialed in. Mason struggled to move the ball offensively on them. I thought fantastic job, both sides of the ball. Wall needs to, they need to get to the point where they can run the ball a little bit better. And I think they're going to. I think it's one of those things when you change offenses, there's going to be some hiccups down the road, and you're going to have to just be able to fix those and find the right kids to put in there. And Coach Londerholm, who's calling the offense now, I thought he did a really good job of mixing up his play calling, not setting up and giving a team very many tendencies to scout you for the next week. And so I thought he did a really good job coming out. That's being his first ball game. I guarantee he was super nervous, and who wouldn't be at that time? There's a lot of pressure in that role.
It's a big game.
I thought he did a fantastic job. He spread the ball around to multiple receivers and to multiple running backs. And so I thought they did a really good job. They came out fairly healthy. They've got a few dings and bruises going into this Mason game, but I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's one thing. I went out to Wall yesterday, talked to Slaughter and Briggs Jones, and I texted, hey man, you got. I mean, you kind of expect some of these little, little hiccups in the road with this new offense, but I mean, it's all going to get ironed out, And I mean, that practice was, fast, and they were throwing it around, and they looked like they were having a good time.
Yeah,
so.
they're going to. They're explosive on the perimeter, and those guys with, the Robertson kid out there on the edge. He's a really tall, lanky receiver that's got good hands. He's got really good speed, and so he made a fantastic catch for a big gain against Mason. And so they've got a lot of weapons out there that you can spread the ball around, and you just can't dial in on Briggs. Briggs being, a very explosive athlete. You just can't dial in on Briggs, or Oliver's going to catch a big pass on you out on the perimeter. It could be Levi King or Caleb Braden on the slot. And then if you try to, vacate the box, you're going to get pounded inside by their run game.
Right. Yep. Let's talk about Brownwood real quick, though. Brownwood didn't play a game last week. They got kind of rained out, and it was going to get delayed, and it just never materialized. Brownwood is a bigger school. They played Mason. Mason's a smaller school than the Wall. Now they're playing a bigger school, a much bigger school. This is a 4A Division I school.
Right.
They've got a Duncanville transfer in for at running back. They got Carson Noe outside. They got Stone Ratliff outside. They got Justin Colson behind under center, and Weston Wolf on defense. What do you think this Brownwood team is going to try to expose on this Wall team?
The thing that Brownwood is going to bring is one thing that we really don't face a whole lot of is the depth of the teams that they're going to have on the other side of the sideline. Most of the time that when Wall plays in their classification, we have quite a few more kids. We'll run up against teams in preseason that usually have as many as us, but for the most part, we won't run up a team that's going to have as many as Brownwood has on the sideline. The depth is going to be paramount for both teams. I'm sure it's going to be humid and somewhat muggy Friday night with all the rain that we've had in the forecast, and so that's going to play a huge role. I think that it's going to come down to the offense and defensive line is going to be very important. Wall's a little bit banged up on the offensive line, but I think I've heard through the grapevine that Brownwood has a few injuries themselves, and so Wall, I think, is going to match up extremely well on the perimeter. Offensively, that is. I think the Wall skill is in space. It's going to be tough to defend on a lot of different levels. I think that trenches, the offensive side and defensive side of the ball are going to be huge. Again, I think Coach Lauder is going to have the defense dialed in. They're going to hit Brownwood with multiple blitz packages, and they're going to hit them from different angles, different areas. They're going to come from the outside. Most of the teams that Brownwood plays probably won't experience a team that blitzes quite like Coach Slaughter does. He does a great job of packaging, zone blitzes and not giving up areas where someone comes from. He'll drop a defensive tackle. He'll drop a nose guard into coverage sometimes. So he does a really good job of disguising those blitzes. So most of the time that Brownwood plays, they're not going to see a defense that blitzes quite like this. And so their offensive line better be ready for that. It's one of those things you don't know what it's like until you get into it, and then you think it's coming from 7 different areas, and it's hard to defend sometimes. So I think that's going to be a huge role. They've got to be able to stop the run game from Brownwood. I know that they're going to be big up front, probably quite a bit bigger than we are up front. So it's one of those things where, again, Wall's going to fly to the football, and they're going to do what they do. Offensively, I think continue what Rob is doing offensively and grow with that each week. I think he'll get better and better each week, and he's doing a really good job of spreading the ball around and not making himself very predictable. And so if he'll continue to do that, we'll be all right.
Yeah, it's one thing that I've noticed is that Brownwood has they had a senior last year leave, a quarterback I call graduated. And now They got Judson Colson back there, so new quarterback, maybe just send the Wolves after him. Dropping a nose tackle into coverage, man, I love it.
Yeah, it's really difficult if you haven't experienced that. Your offensive line better be dialed in of where they're coming from, and your running back's got to be able to help also. And so, because they're going to have a lot of the answers for Brownwood, they'll have those covered. If they're going to run the screen or they're going to run the back out, try to slow the blitzes down, they're going to have all that stuff covered. And so it's one of those things. I think that it'll be an exciting game. I think Wall really needs to come out of this game healthy. It's one of those things you can't start dropping players 2 or 3 each game. It makes you very thin going into the district games, and it makes you very thin going into the playoffs. So we got to stay healthy. That's a huge key. But I think that this will be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, and it doesn't just end here with Brownwood. They have Jim Ned next week, so
Yeah,
you gotta stay healthy.
They've got a gauntlet of teams that they're going to run through in the next probably 4 or 5 weeks, and so staying healthy is the key. But continue to play at that high level that they can.
All right, well, Coach Guy, do you have anything you'd like to add before we call it?
No, just good luck to both teams. Both teams stay healthy. Have a great football, a good Friday night, and let's enjoy this football game.
All right, well, everybody, this has been Coach Guy, former head coach of the Wall Hawks, and we're going back to studio.
All right, again, as always, thank you for coming in, Coach Guy. We look forward to every time you come in and talk football with us. Always gives us just that coach's insight, even though you're not technically coaching this year. We still appreciate it. But our final matchup of the week that we will be covering is going to be one of our Lubbock schools, and it's going to be between 2 really talented Lubbock schools that both got their first wins last year. It's going to be Lubbock Coronado visiting the now number 9 in 5A ranked LoveCooper Pirates out there at Pirate Stadium on south of Lubbock. Now this matchup should be high-powered on offense. Now LoveCooper just got an excellent win over a Metroplex school in Lovejoy last week. That game came down to the wire, ended up 46-43. I'm pretty sure the final score was with just a back and forth. Lovejoy is very talented on the offense side of the football, but it seemed like LoveCooper always had an answer. That game came down to a pivotal fumble recovery by LoveCooper in that fourth quarter to keep the Pirates ahead, and they just kind of outlasted them at that point, got them into the top 10 rankings with that win. Now, Lubbock Coronado played a Wichita Falls school last week, and again, another one of those high-powered offensive matchups that whoever had the ball last won. Coronado did score last and then held the ball long enough to the point where Wichita Falls Legacy could not score again. So both teams enter this matchup 1-0. Lubbock Coronado runs the ball a little bit more than LoveCooper does. I do think LoveCooper has the athletes to win this one, but if Lubbock Coronado controls the clock, that is their path to victory in this one. And our South Plains affiliate, Nick Thompson, will be at that one covering that game, so that one should be exciting.
All right, moving on. Before we move on, though, we got to thank some sponsors here. For any banking needs, go to Texas Bank. Proven, local, and strong is how customers refer to Texas Bank, one of the most successful banks in the Lone Star State. Texas Bank is a full-service bank with over $2 billion in assets, and they operate in 16 locations from El Paso to Dallas-Fort Worth, including 3 right here in San Angelo, located at 2201 Sherwood Way, 1815 North Chadburn, and 4206 College Hills. Texas Bank staff are your friends and your neighbors. All right, moving on, Chadwick. We have our players of the week. We had a bunch of players to choose from, but Paul, go ahead and who's our player of the week this week?
I don't think it could be anybody but Christian Villarreal from Ozona. I mean, he averaged 18 yards a carry.
How many carries do you have?
20 carries for 361 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Lord.
6 touchdowns, man.
Goodness.
We knew
and they had
he
to
was
replace their offensive line.
He was going to be a breakout guy for sure. I mean, he had the great sophomore season last year. He was somebody to watch, but I mean, that's a ridiculous start to the season. So he was head and shoulders above everybody.
Yeah, and they got El Dorado this week, right?
They do, and El Dorado's defense was good last week against Cristobal, but
so
they're
this
definitely
could be a good matchup.
Tested for sure. Yeah.
So it's a road game for Ozona, and they're traveling to El Dorado, coming off of a big win over Cristobal, who was on the road last week. So, like, what are we thinking in this matchup?
I think it's going to be a good matchup between I can't pronounce the name, Eliza Hernandez and Christian Villarreal, and I'm excited to see it, to be honest with you.
Well, a new El Dorado offense too. It worked pretty well against Cristobal.
Yep, and our sixth-man player of the week is Brenner Sherwood. He had 208 yards passing and a touchdown. He had 13 carries for 121 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 2 defensive touchdowns over Lorraine. Really couldn't be anybody. I mean, you score 7 different ways. That's impressive. And Brenner Sherwood put up great numbers last year, and I didn't think anybody expected him to do anything other than that. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, he was one of our top 10 he may have been one of our top 10 quarterbacks to watch with what he did last year as a spread back. Definitely awesome start to the season. Robert Lee's they preseason top 25 in the state. And so they've got a big test this week against Garden City, though. Garden City took out Nazareth last week, who was number 22 in the state.
Yeah, it should be a really good matchup. What do you think, Ryan?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think that Robert Lee's bringing a lot of talent to the table this year. It seems like they improve a little bit every year from the season previous, too. So, I mean, look for Robert Lee to like continue this role and really make a deep playoff run, too.
Right, we can't just talk about those two guys. We got to talk about Briggs Jones from Wall, his touchdown catch, which was a tremendous athletic effort. And then we got to talk about Cason Brown. He had like an 80-yard touchdown pass to Cason Graves. He actually got tipped in the air. It's deep pass down, the left sideline, and just heads-up play by Cason Graves to catch it and take it to the end zone. I think Cason Brown ended up with 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in that game, and just played outstanding. What about some other matchups? Let's talk about Lubbock High and Big Spring. Ryan.
So Lubbock High and Big Spring is what was played on Thursday night, and be sure to tune in to the post-game show for all the highlights in this one. I won't spoil anything yet, but this one was played at Lowry Field in Lubbock on Thursday. Now, both schools are still seeking their first win from a week ago, but Lubbock High showed some promise. They have improved from a year ago, and while they still struggled at times, like they are getting much better. So yeah, look forward to this one.
All right, moving on. Eden and Sydney. Sydney plays in Eden. That is supposed to be a very good matchup. Last week the games up in Brownwood might have gotten rained out. We couldn't really get an accurate deal on May and Sydney. They're supposed to play last week, but Sydney is ranked. Eden beat Paint Rock last week, 45 to them. It was like 58-12. This should be, it got moved to Thursday. It was supposed to be played on Friday, so I'm going to head out. Oh, I've already headed out there, right? Paul, TLCA and Cisco.
All right, well, TLCA had a rough start to the year under their new coach, Bradley O. I mean, they lost 54-0 to Tahoka last week. Cisco's another strong opponent. It's going to take a while. We knew this was going to be a rebuilding year for them. I think Coach O is just trying to get a foundation set, and it's going to be a tough year because they have such a tough district coming up too. But just one game at a time. Let's see if they can make some progress this week.
I think it's important to note that too. When these guys, when these programs are in these rebuilding years, the guys who are on that team are really setting the foundation for the future. And those guys on those teams are on these struggling teams, even when they don't have a good game. These are the guys who are the heart and soul of this team, who want to be out there and who love football. So I do think it's going to be a tough matchup against Cisco, but I have a lot of respect for guys who go out there and just give it their best shot.
Well, and also we can't, they moved up. TLCA moved up. They're in a tough district, so hey, iron sharpens iron, right? You got to play the best to get your best. And then our last game is Robert Lee Garden City. We already kind of talked about this one. Brenner Sherwood should go off. Garden City knocked off Nazareth last week, and this should be a very, very, very good matchup. Before we really move forward, though, we're going to hear a quick word from Jim Bass Ford.
It's our giant tag sale.
Giant tags plus hell means one thing: giant tag hell sale prices. Right now, during our giant tag hell sale, you can get a brand new 2024 Ford Bronco Sport for just $27,977. But hurry, these are selling fast. Our giant tag hail sale at Jim Bass Cars and Trucks, Houston Hart at Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at bassbunch.com.
Now, while James is struggling a little bit at the end of our last segment, he does say he's sorry. He's feeling a little sick today, guys. But remember, this year we are bringing in some college football coverage, since we're going to be at these games and we're going to be in these meeting rooms. We're going to be talking to these head coaches, talking to these players. Let's go ahead and preview some of the college football matchups in West Texas. First up is our Division I West Texas college football team. The Texas Tech Red Raiders come off a very close and nervous win over Abilene Christian in overtime last week.
You want to talk about it?
That Texas Tech was going to roll, but former Central Bobcats quarterback Maverick McIver played out of his mind, threw for over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. The young man is a former Red Raider and a former Central Bobcat, now captain out there at ACU, played one of the games of his life. And it wasn't even that Tech's defense played horrible. Like, they could have played better. McIver was so accurate and he was so quick with his release. He snapped, get the ball, and the ball was already out. That Tech's pass rush really had no chance to get to him. So congratulations to McIver. We know San Angelo's proud of you. But looking ahead to Washington State, Tech hits the road this one for a very long road trip, needing to play much better on the defensive side of the football. Now, on offense, you put up 52 points. You know that you are in a position to where you're comfortable with that, right? You expected to put up 52 points against ACU. Taj Brooks had almost 150 yards rushing. The Josh Kelly and a couple of the other Tech receivers had monster games. Baron Morton was accurate, no interceptions, no turnovers at all for that Tech offense, really. So Washington State is you're gonna be able to score on Washington State. So I do expect another high-scoring matchup. Although that defense with that new secondary, Coach Wire said after the game in that press conference that 3 of his guys made their first collegiate start last week. So let's see what kind of adjustments that they make to kind of help those guys out. But Washington State is favored by 1.5 points in this one, and Tech's on the road. Tech really needs to win this if they want to continue that momentum and kind of shake off last week. But congratulations to ACU for giving the Red Raiders a lot of trouble. But this one should be exciting. This game is on Saturday. It's going to be a late kickoff too, because it's one of those West Coast matchups. Don't even kick off till 9:30.
But you also have to talk about, what connects Washington State and Texas Tech.
So the late and great former head coach for the Red Raiders and Washington Cougars ended his career with the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Mike Leach. He will be honored on Friday when Tech and Washington State play each other. He's going to be inducted into the Washington State Hall of Fame. Now, Leach was the head coach at the Cougars for 5+ seasons. He really cranked out some excellent quarterbacks out of there, including the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders this year, Gardner Minshew. So it's terrible. It's still a tragic loss the way that we don't have Mike Leach anymore. But it's going to be great seeing 2 teams that really loved the Pirate really honor him on Saturday.
All right, Paul, moving on. Let's talk about Angelo State and Emporia State.
Yeah, tough start for the Rams last week. I think we expected their offense to struggle a little bit. They've got a freshman and a sophomore quarterback battling it out. I think what was more surprising was the defense, giving up back-to-back 90-yard touchdown drives. As a top 10 defense last year. Now, they didn't allow another touchdown drive the rest of the game until a late fumble, set up Fort Hays State to put the game away. But it was surprising to see the defense struggle like that. Now, they've still got all their goals in front of them, but it makes this week's matchup absolutely critical for them. Emporia was a 9-win team last year, and if ASU were to go to 0-2, that would put them really behind the 8 ball before conference play starts, trying to get a playoff berth.
So do you think it was one of those where because of the game kept getting delayed, then canceled, and then having to play so early the next day, do you think that could have affected the defense?
Maybe so. Fort Hays State, they're a good team. They won 7 games last year. They returned just about every starter, just like ASU. So perhaps that played a part, but maybe ASU, it's also just first week. It's always kind of some jitters first week, kind of sloppy. Maybe that played a part. I don't know, but it was definitely surprising to see them not only just give up a touchdown, but 90-yard touchdown drives. You just didn't see that from them.
Well, no, you also had the game get delayed and got pushed in the next day, and maybe that kind of affects you just a little bit. It just throws you off just a bit. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Maybe.
I hope I see the offense play a little bit better against Emporia State too. I know you're young, but you need to score more than 7 points a game if you want a chance at winning, no matter how good your defense is. One touchdown will not cut it. So the Rams are probably going to have to at least score 21 or more to beat Emporia State. So this one's on the road too. Tough road for the Rams, but they have their home opener the week after this one. So.
All right, and before we move on, all of our college coverages are brought to you by the ArcLight Bar and Grill. The largest video wall in the region is at San Angelo's #1 sports bar and grill. Saturday's college game day was never this good. The ArcLight Bar and Grill is inside the Clarion Hotel at 441 Rio Concho Drive. All right, now we got to move on. We got to talk about our picks real fast. Ryan, you want to go ahead and drop those real quick. I guess we talked about our overalls real fast. We had Chadwick is at 3-2. James is at 2-3. Paul is at 3-2. Nick is at 4-1. He's our leader. Luke is at 3-2. Ernesto's at 1-4, and Scott is at 3-2.
It absolutely kills me that Nick is at 4-1 too. Like he's new to the area. He's new to the company, and he just
Hey! You leave Nick alone. Nick's
gloating.
the standard. Nick's the standard.
Yeah, he's already gloating. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into picks now for the San Angelo Central versus Amarillo High game. This one's pretty split. We have 3 of us going for Central. It's going to be me, Ernesto, and Scott. We all picked Central, while James, Paul, Nick, and Lucas all went Amarillo. No faith in the Bobcats, but for me, I'm always going to pick the Central Bobcats.
Oh, no surprise there. Moving on, though, we got Brownwood and Wall. This is Brownwood's first game. They got junior Judson Colston at quarterback. They got Karsten Noe outside. They've got Stone Ratliff on the other side. They got Duncanville transferring. Trey Mosley back, toting the rock. They got Weston Wolf, Robert Trowbridge on the defensive side. But they're playing against Wall. Wall has a very good defense. Their offense can, apparently outscore Mason. And Mason was a very good team. But Briggs Jones, Landon York had a good game. That defense really needs to clamp down on this offense, though, and I think we're going to get our 4 horsemen out of this one. So far, though, Chadwick went Brownwood, I went Brownwood, Paul went Brownwood, Nick went Wall, Lucas went Brownwood, Ernesto went Wall, and Scott went Wall. Paul, let's talk about Sterling City and Miles.
Yeah, let's just go to me on that. But this one is an interesting matchup. But I think that we've already kind of said that Miles has the advantage in this one, and the picks show it. Ernesto, who was 1-4 last week, is the only one who went Sterling City. So let's hope this is one of those games he can make up, I guess. But across the board, everyone else went Miles.
All right, moving on, we got Snyder and Lakeview. This game's going to be right here at San Angelo Stadium. Lakeview played very good. They have a chance to get a win here. Chadwick went Lakeview. I went Lakeview. Paul went Lakeview. Nick went Lakeview. So Lakeview's probably going to win. Lucas went Lakeview. Ernesto went Lakeview. And Scott went with Snyder. Chadwick, talk about Sydney and Eden. Or you want me to talk about Sydney?
Okay, well, this is another six-man game, and Eden put up a lot of points like last week. I don't really know how Sydney's gonna look.
They were ranked in the preseason polls. They were ranked.
This one should be a high-powered matchup. I know the Bulldogs are capable of scoring a lot of points, but again, 6-man. This might be one of those 84 to 83 games.
Very easily could be.
In this one, we have almost a James is the only one who's going Sydney. And I know it's because the Sydney was ranked in the preseason, but I guess we're all hometown believers because the rest of us all across the board went East.
I did tell you if everybody went one way, you could go me the other way to make it a little more interesting, but whatever. All right, going on to final
cover himself because he's 2-3 right now. This is the first time in a while that James has been below me in the picks.
Going on to final thoughts: Ryan, Friendship, and Wichita Memorial.
Okay, so the Friendship Tigers had that incredible game against Byron Nelson that came down to the wire last week. Friendship ended up losing that one 48-46. But like I said, they ran out of time. They needed about 10 more yards to get into field goal range. Couldn't quite get there, so they had a little fumble-rooski play. Byron Nelson gets the fumble and ends up winning that game. That is super encouraging for the Friendship Tigers, showing that they can compete with these Metroplex schools. Now, they host Wichita Falls Memorial for their home opener. I'm not saying anything wrong with Wichita Falls Memorial, but I do think that the Tigers might drop 50 or 60 points on them. Memorial will score, but I think Friendship wins this one.
All right, Paul, you want to talk about Ballinger and Cristobal?
Yeah, I believe this is the first time these two teams have ever played. They're only 60 miles apart, but the size disparity between them has prevented them from playing before. Cristobal's a 6-man team for a long time. So pretty cool, first ever meeting between them. And for Ballinger, they're coming off a win. They went winless last year. They were 1-9 the year before, so there's a lot of excitement right now. They're dropping to 2A, and they have a chance to go 2-0 this week. So big game for Ballinger.
All right, and I'm talking about its game outside the Concho Valley. It's May and Oglesby. Oglesby played at State last year, lost to Benjamin. They're playing May. May is always in the conversation for State. They are both, I think they're both top 10 teams. I think May was ranked 7th and Oglesby was ranked 1. Oglesby did lose last week to Abbott, and Kyler Fawcett is an extremely electric player. Ben Harrell for May is a very, very good, linebacker, run back for him. And this should just be a state, the 6-man state power is going to be watching this one. Anybody else want to add anything before we get out of here?
Hey, man, week 2. Let's go Bobcats.
Yep, let's go Concho Valley, man. I'm ready for some good football. It looks like we have some really good games coming up this week. Paul, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think we covered every game in the area, man.
I think we did. But this has been Cover 1 for week 2, and we'll see you after the games.